Who's the number that ends in 279?
That's Aaron.
Okay, thanks, Aaron.
Yep.
Hey, Brian, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, since we got everybody participating remotely tonight, and we had to send out the exhibits in advance, we may want to verify that everybody's got them at the beginning of the hearing.
Okay.
And there would have been 3 packages that would have been sent out. I sent out 2. One was a package of materials that I put together. The second was a package of materials that that Inspector Kyler put together. And then the third is the applicant's package of exhibits. So
Okay.
you should have gotten 3 emails today, Lynn.
Okay, I see. Okay, let's see. You didn't send them, Steve, though Debbie did, right?
I'm sorry, it would actually have been 2 emails. I sent the Susan mine out together early afternoonish. And then Debbie sent out an email with the applicant's exhibits
Okay.
late afternoon.
Okay, I see.
She sent it at 4:19.
Okay.
Okay, I see them now.
The one was 148 and then 419.
Right.
And this was from Ms. Costello also. And this is from his brother.
We've got Brian, Janice, and Aaron. We still need. Except for Laura, who was a no. So that's Greg and Jim. Okay. All right.
Yeah, I don't know. But I know the city paid for it. It was a great, did a great job.
Folks, when it comes time to making your presentation, if you could move your microphones up close to you.
Okay.
That way, folks promoting in can hear well.
Okay.
Brian, we're still waiting on Greg or Jim.
Okay.
They're not coming.
Oh, they're not coming?
They were definite maybe. These are.
Okay, see, I'm number 4.
Okay.
Oh, okay. All right, Brian, we got enough then. Okay, I'm going to turn on our camera, then you're ready to roll.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, I was confused with that.
All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today is Wednesday, May 19th, 2021. This is a session of the City of Hagerstown Board of Zoning Appeals. My name is Brian Kurtika. I'm the chairperson of the board. Joining by Zoom, as well are my 2 additional board members, Aaron Smith and Janice Kelsch. Tonight, we also have in the City Hall conference room, or I'm sorry, in the chambers, council chambers, we have Steve Bachmiller, our zoning administrator for the city, and Debbie Calhoun, board secretary. The decisions and cases heard tonight are based on general and specific criteria as enumerated in the Land Management Code of the City of Hagerstown. This is an administrative proceeding. As such, it will be conducted just as if this were a court of law, except that we will not follow as strictly the rules of evidence. Everyone who wishes to be heard on a particular case will be heard. Each of the cases will be heard in the order filed with the board, although I believe this is the only case we have tonight. Our procedure, we will first hear from the applicant or the applicant's attorney or representative. We will then hear from all witnesses in favor of the application. Then we'll hear all witnesses in opposition. Then, if necessary, final remarks from the applicant or the applicant's attorney or representative. The board will then close the testimony and evidentiary portion of the hearing. We'll take the case under advisement, deliberate if possible tonight, and then render our decision tonight. We do have a quorum of 3 of our normal 5 members. A written decision will be issued within 45 days, no later than 45 days after tonight's hearing. You have the right to appeal to the Circuit Court of Washington County. Actually, anybody who's aggrieved by our decision has that right. 30 days after the date of the written decision. Let's see. We have 2 rules which we ask all participants to follow. The only remarks we will consider are those given from the witness chair by persons who have been placed under oath. And we ask that the remarks of anyone who's testifying be confined to things that are pertinent to the matter that is under appeal. Tonight's first case, bear with me, I think I closed my agenda, is case Z 2021-02. It is a case that is brought for an administrative appeal of an administrative decision. Mr. Bachmiller, if you will give us a summary.
Yes, this is administrative appeal of the zoning violation notice that I issued for the conversion of a single-family home into a 2-family dwelling. The applicant is here this evening. Also participating will be, and will need to be sworn in when everybody else is, are the inspector, Suzanne Kyler, and also her supervisor, Paul, what's your title? Director of Supervisor of Field Operations? Field Manager for Field Operations, Paul.
Okay. All right.
Since I'm a party to the appeal, I don't have a staff report. We don't do staff reports in administrative appeal cases.
I understand.
That's basically one of the parties involved writing your report for you. We can't do that.
Right. I do know that this is an appeal that is permitted under the Land Management Code, and that the board has the power to hear this case set forth in Article 4, Section Section U7A, interpretations. So I will ask the applicant to please, well, I guess you can sit, you don't need to stand, but if you would raise your right hand so I can administer the oath to you.
No, you're officer of the court. You don't do it, but you work.
Okay.
Do you solemnly promise to declare under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you are about to give this board shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
If you'll state your full name and address for the record, please.
Joan Marie McCabe Lord, 711 Salem Avenue. Oh, I'm sorry. Joan Marie McCabe Lord, 711 Salem Avenue, Hagerstown, Maryland, 21740.
Thank you. You may go ahead and present, or have your counsel present your petition for tonight.
And yet, for the record, I am Daniel Mahone. I'm representing Ms. Joan Lord in this appeal, and start out by indicating that client's position is that the property that is the subject of this hearing has been for a continuous period since 1977 or 78 utilized as a 2-unit two apartments. And that the previous owner of that property, of Mr. Walter Haxton, purchased that property on or about January 20th, 1978. He used that property as a two-unit separate apartments. Further down the road, there came a time when the city of Hagerstown, through a program that we're not actually familiar with or have a full understanding, but they did, in fact, cause an inspection and some updates to be made to this property. And according to our position, city paid for electric and plumbing updates on this property, which included 2 stoves and 2 full bathrooms. This indicates that the city acknowledged, allowed, and encouraged this to be used as a 2-unit property. Now, the other thing is that our best evidence that we have is the person who was in the property, the owner of that property, Mr. Haxton. And one of our exhibits, I'll show this to Ms. Lloyd, and then I'll have her identify this document. First, can you identify what that document is, Ms. Lloyd?
It's a letter from Calvin Haxton, who is Walter Haxton's. Walter is the seller, Calvin is his brother.
Okay, that's his brother, but the actual owner of the property was a Walter Allen
Yes, Haxton,
Paxton, and that's who you purchased the property from, is that correct?
correct.
Okay, so I'll take that one back first, and
Okay.
I'll give you this one. This exhibit, it has 2 pages. And first, could you identify what that is?
These are Facebook messages from Walter to myself. We were Facebook friends and we messaged quite a bit prior to the purchase of the property and after I purchased the property.
Okay, now, in that, in the email, what is the position that's taken by Mr. Haxton?
That it had always been a 2-unit property and the city allowed it. And that was one of his statements, is that the city had allowed it. And they even wired the stove circuit for upstairs and approved the wiring for it.
All right, so I don't know if the board actually has our exhibit, but this is the exhibit, and we did send up this particular one. And it reads, I've been renting for 40 years, and they have allowed it before this. And I think that they means the city. They even wired in the stove circuit for upstairs and approved the wiring for it. And another email, Mr. Haxton says, I rented it for 10 years when I ran my company. That was from 33 to 23 years ago. And I had Wendy staying up there for 15 years. Also, I had people in their early 60s, in the early 60s, then recently, I think for the last 5 years. There were times I did not want to, there were times he did not want to.
Right, like a couple months here and there, he didn't rent it.
All right, and then, so now, Mr. Haxton is deceased,
Yes,
but he was in fact the person you purchased the property from.
yes,
You relied upon his representation, is that correct?
yes.
All right, now, there was another letter that was submitted on your behalf, and that was a letter from Calvin B. Haxton. Is that letter right there?
Yes.
Okay, could you read that letter for the purposes of, so that the board can hear what you got from that letter?
To it may concern, I, Calvin B. Haxton, do solemnly swear that the contents of this document are true and correct recollection of the timeline and events regarding the acquisition of property 718 Forest Street, Hagerstown, Maryland, by my late brother, Walter A. Haxton, brother. Sometime around 1976, my brother moved to Hagerstown and rented a room at 718 Forest Street. Sometime during 1977, his landlord, who lived at the same address, became ill and my brother offered to buy the property. A deal was struck on or about January 1978. My brother took possession of the aforementioned property and continued to live on the first floor while renting rooms located on the second floor. And he did have this notarized.
Okay,
And from my understanding, what he meant by renting rooms is rented the upstairs as a separate apartment, because it had a separate still has a separate entrance and exit.
Okay, so is that, now the purpose of you seeking to get that information from the Haxtons, what motivated you to get that information from the Haxtons?
When the city had said that it was not a two-unit property, I said it had always been utilized that way, and then I got the information, and there's another note from Walter that he gave me also
Okay.
that said that it was a
Now,
two-unit property.
Is that the
Mhm.
additional letter here?
Yeah, that was from Walter.
Okay,
Mhm.
all right. I want to show you this particular one and
Mhm.
ask you to take a look at that and
Mhm.
identify it for the board members and then read that into the record, please.
To whom it might concern, when I first moved into 718 Forest Street in Hagerstown, Maryland, 21740, it was 1978. I received numerous pieces of mail marked apartment 1. For there to be an apartment number 1 in a building, there must be at the very least an apartment number 2. Since then, I have off and on been renting the spare bedrooms in the house. I've been doing this for 40 years. Also, there has always been an outside entrance for those rooms so they could not have to walk through my living space. They could get in case of fire by breaking in the door at the bottom of the steps. I do not know if the new owners will leave a breakable door there or not. I always considered it a fire safety precaution, and I never had a problem with it for security reasons. Walter Allen Haxton.
Okay, and so right now, Ms. Lloyd, you came into the property, you actually bought the property, I thought I had a copy of your deed, but you bought the property and that was purchased for about January 12th, 2018,
Mhm.
is that correct?
Yeah.
And since that time, you've been utilizing it as a rental space,
Mhm.
as a 2 apartment rental space, is that correct?
Yeah.
And do you have current tenants?
Yes.
Okay. And they have a lease?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I don't have any additional questions.
I do have some questions for the applicant. The most pertinent being that non-conforming uses in the city of Hagerstown are required to be continuous without a 2-year period of it not being used in the non-conforming way. Do you have evidence to show a time horizon during Mr. Haxton and your ownership that establishes that there was no 2-year gap in the upstairs apartment being rented?
So there are the two Facebook messages. One said he rented it for 40 years. The letter from his brother that said it had always been rented upstairs. And then his second message that said he had it 10 years. And then Wendy living there for 15, that's 35. And then the other people for 5 years, that's 40 years also. So I have 3 documents stating that it had been continually rented, and he owned it for almost 40 years to the day.
Okay, and the reason why I ask is because I see, he says he's been renting for 40 years.
Mhm.
But he says that there were times when he didn't rent it.
Right, but that was only a couple months at a time.
How do you know
It was
that?
not- It was, well, based on when he I rented it for 10 years. That was from 33 to 23 years ago. I had Wendy staying up there for 15 years. That right there is 25. And also had people in the early 60s, and then for the last 5 years. So that all, combines, adds up. And then his brother also mentioned that he had always rented it. Times he didn't want to rent it, like Wendy, that was his friend. And from what I understand, he didn't actually rent it to her. She just stayed up there at no charge or
Okay.
reduced rent. I'm not sure. And unfortunately, he's passed.
And
But I
there's
know
no leases of any kind? No leases?
No, he'd never had leases. It was all
There's no rent receipts?
and he passed a month after we purchased the property. That's why I have Facebook messages, because there was no way that, I didn't have time to have him sign any of these things. but his brother did have that notarized. He did that on his own for me.
When you moved into the property, was there somebody living in the second unit?
He was on the first floor and there were tenants upstairs. They shared a kitchen, shared a bathroom, and, shared a common space.
Okay. And they're still there today?
Pardon?
Are those persons still there today?
No. We had them leave and remodeled and,
When did they leave?
I think it was June of 2018. And then we had, this is not our first tenant. This is our third tenant. My daughter did have a lease and she lived there for a while. And then we had another tenant and then this current tenant. So it has not been vacant for 2 years.
Okay, so you've had somebody in the property since you purchased it, but no gap during your ownership of more than
Correct.
2 or more years.
Correct.
All
Yeah,
right.
there was a gap for about 6 months when we were remodeling it.
Did you, I'm assuming Christopher is your husband,
He's my son.
your son, okay. Did you and your son live in this property?
He lives in there the entire time. He's always lived on the first floor.
Okay. You have not?
Correct.
Okay. All right. I asked that because, I don't know if this is pertinent or not, but this property was taken as a principal residence. And it's not your principal residence.
Correct. It's my son's principal residence.
All residents must be principal residents. All owners must be principal residents in order to claim principal residence.
Okay, I was not aware of that.
Just letting you know that. in
Okay,
case-
I was not
in case
aware.
The state comes back or the county comes back on you.
Okay, I
I
was not
don't think
aware.
it's relevant. I don't think it's relevant for the non-conforming.
Okay.
use. I just pointed out because I'm a real estate attorney, so I deal with this all the time. And I
Okay.
always have to caution people, don't say it's a principal residence if you're not living there. But anyhow, it may have been the title company that made that mistake too. All right, so we've got the communications, the Facebook communications from Mr. Walter Haxton
Mhm.
indicating that it appears that there is a coverage for on and off for almost 40 years with tenants. And you have a notarized statement from his brother Calvin that those statements, to his knowledge, are true and correct. Okay. And we have your own testimony that you have had tenants in there almost continuously since you've purchased the property, certainly not for less than or for any time with the 2-year gap.
Correct.
What kind of remodeling did you do after you took ownership?
I remodeled the kitchen. I changed the rooms around a little bit to make it easier to walk through. I put in luxury vinyl tile flooring. I remodeled the bathroom to make it easier to walk in and out. It was very awkward the way it was set up. I put in new to me kitchen cabinets, new countertop, better stove, better refrigerator, added a dishwasher, added a washer dryer. And all of this was done by professional contractors and full permits and inspections. There was also a second panel box installed there. And we had looked into having other wiring installed, and then COVID came and just kind of put everything on hold.
Okay. I heard mention, I think you may have mentioned, or your attorney may have mentioned, that there's a separate entryway to the
Yes.
second unit.
It has always been a separate entryway.
Okay, so you didn't remodel to include that. That
No.
was there when you moved in. Okay.
That was there.
How is that second entrance? How do you get in?
It's if you're on the street looking at the house, it's on the right-hand side. You go to the right of the building, down a couple stairs into the yard, and then up the entryway.
So it's on the side of the house. It's not on the front of the house.
Correct. It's on the side, and you can see by the structure that it's been there for quite a long time.
And you said stairway going up to the entrance.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Uh,
And I don't think I brought them, but I did do Google Maps, and I have seen back as far as Google Maps where they had that street that you can see those steps were there.
Okay.
I don't remember how far back. I was looking for a meter, an
Okay.
extra. So I don't-
That leads me to my second question. Are there separate electrical meters or water meters for the 2 units?
There are not, and from what I understand, that there was a separate meter at one point, but it was removed when it was rewired. I've not been able to confirm that with anybody. When I first purchased the property and was talking about that, looking into this, I was under the impression that it would be grandfathered in, but I wanted to have something in writing. So I contacted the city to find out about that. And they had indicated to me that at some point prior to that or after that time period, that all the records were destroyed by a fire and they were not able to research back that far to see if that had happened.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you. Let's see. Do you maintain rental licenses for both units?
Well, it's only one that's rented. And since it's owner occupied plus one, I do not have a rental license, but I do have a lead certificate.
You have lead
And I've gotten the lead certificates for the tenants that were not, my daughter, I did not get one, but I did for the other tenants, the other 2.
Okay. Do Aaron or Janice, do you have any questions
Now,
at this point?
how many tenants are there?
Just 2.
Okay.
The upstairs. Just 2 tenants upstairs. Yes, it's a 2-bedroom.
And during your remodeling periods, when you had the 6-month break of no one being there, and what year was that?
That was 2018, the year I purchased the property.
2018. And did you say there's just one water meter?
Correct. And
So-
that's very common for multiple.
So
unit
if
properties.
you have 2 tenants, do you pay the water bill or do your tenants take charge of that?
We pay the water bill and we also pay the electric bill. And then there's a rent fee and then there's a separate fee that covers all utilities.
That's
it's-
charged to the tenants?
Correct. And they also have their own washer and dryer and their own, so the tenant, that's the way we had done it, that they have a fee for rent and then a fee for utilities. It's a fixed fee because we do not have a separate meter.
Okay.
And it's very common in Hagerstown and a lot of cities that if it's a multi-unit property, there's only one water meter. It's not as common to have one electric, but it's not uncommon.
And what year was this City of Hagerstown inspection? Do you have a date on that?
I'm not sure what inspection you're,
The one that, for the electrical, the one permit.
which, the permit? All the permits, when we had the permits and everything signed off, I believe
To
in
improving the
2018.
updates, improving the updates.
Oh, that was in 2018, yes. They were all permit, the general contractor, the plumbing and electric. I have all three permits and they were all signed off.
Okay. That's all of my questions at the moment.
Aaron, anything?
Yeah, I heard when she was discussing the layout, did I hear that there was the kitchen was common use? So it was kind of a shared between the upstairs and the downstairs apartments and the bathroom as well?
No.
Okay.
The kitchen, there's a kitchen, full kitchen and full bath downstairs, and there was always a full kitchen and a full bathroom upstairs. It's just I remodeled the upstairs. And
Okay, sorry.
yeah, no, that's okay.
How is this property insured?
Pardon?
How is this property insured? Is it insured as a multi-unit building?
I believe so. My son carries a homeowner's insurance, so I couldn't swear to that, but I believe it is because we purchased it as a multi-unit building and expected it to be a multi-unit building. And I'm sure I discussed a landlord policy with him before because a landlord, but he's an owner-occupied landlord too. So I can't say definitely, but
Is your son local?
he lives in the property.
Okay, so you didn't think that he needed to be at this hearing?
He has a special needs son, and so he felt it, that the child might be a distraction, and so he stayed home. I sent him the Zoom link, but I don't think he's on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. How difficult would it be? Can you reach your son by phone right now?
Probably. Yeah.
Would it be possible for, I mean, I hate to push this, but I'm trying to find as much, I mean, obviously you want to back up your
Right.
application, which is with as much evidence as you can to show us that for all intents and purposes, this has always been a 2-unit building,
Mhm.
and everything that you have shows it that way. I mean, that,
Right.
and I would like to just take your word for it, but if your
Right.
son is the one who maintains the insurance, I can't. I need something that shows that it is in fact insured as a 2-unit or a multi-unit establishment, not just a single family dwelling.
Okay.
If it's insured as a single family dwelling, then the insurance company is also under the belief that there's just one dwelling. So I'm wondering,
No.
because he'd have to dig up his policy and,
Mhm.
take a picture of it, at least the declaration page, and take a picture of it and text it to you, and at least
Yeah.
some way that we could.
Submit it later.
We would probably have to hold off on our deliberations to allow that into evidence.
Right.
That's okay with us.
I would leave. I would defer to my board members and my other board members to say if we can take all the evidence and testimony tonight from both sides. If the two of you feel that that's something that we would like to see, we can certainly agree at the end of all this whether we want to postpone it or not. So let's table that for the time being. Okay. Anything else that you'd like to say to us, Ms. Lord? You'll come back. You'll have more time after I hear from Mr. Bachmiller.
Thank you.
Okay, great. All right.
Did we get the opportunity to cross?
You get the opportunity to cross.
Do we? I don't know the answer to that.
If I give you the opportunity to cross, I have to give that same opportunity to Ms. Lord and her counsel.
I'm okay with that. If
Okay,
you're
all right.
okay.
All right. Yep.
But it really boils down to what our rules of procedure are.
Yes. And our rules do adhere as closely as possible to court, an actual court proceeding. And so, I think that it is appropriate if you have questions that you would like to direct, because you have more knowledge as a city representative on what is required of the permits, the inspections, and your own conversations with Ms. Lord.
And that will come during our presentation as well.
And that will give
not presenting testimony. It's just
and that'll give Mr. Mahone the opportunity then to question you about those items too.
Sure. Okay, Ms. Lord, I just have one quick question. When you were explaining the history of the site, in response to Mr. Katika asking you questions, one of the things that you mentioned was that and I lost track of the details of the timing on it, but you specifically said that there was a shared kitchen and shared bathroom.
By the people upstairs. They shared it. He occasionally rented it out by the room instead of like renting it to you and your children. He would rent it to you and you and you, and they shared a kitchen and they shared a bath. So it
And
wasn't,
what time was this?
that was when I purchased it. He had several people living up there. It was
With a kitchen.
Yeah, kitchen and a bathroom.
So this would have been 2018.
18. Yeah, it was just completely separate apartment.
So you're stating that in 2018 there was a fully functioning kitchen on that second floor.
Yes.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Yeah. And I'm not sure. The, oh, okay.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. You're on mute.
Is there anybody else to testify in support of the application?
No, sir.
Okay. Hearing none, do we have any witnesses in opposition?
We'll be making our presentation with 2 representatives of city staff.
Okay. If you'll call your first witness, please.
Would you like to swear us in?
I will. That's everybody who's going to testify, that is. So Steve, who else is?
We have Paul Falk and Suzanne.
And Suzanne. Okay. Please raise your right hand. And where did I put my little cheat sheet here? Okay. Do you each solemnly promise and declare under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you are about to give this board shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Bachmiller, if you'll state your name and position and address for the record.
Name Stephen Bachmiller, position zoning administrator for the city of Hagerstown. Mailing address is 1 East Franklin Street, Hagerstown, Maryland, 21740. With me, I have Inspector Suzanne Kyler and her supervisor, Mr. Paul Falk. Just want to enter a couple quick things into the record. First is the SSTAT record for the property, which identifies the owner as Christopher Michael Lord and Joan M. Lord, property at 718 Forest Street in Hagerstown. This is property tax account number District 25, account number 011066. Under the legal description, it identifies the property as lot 17, measuring 41 feet in width, 127 feet deep for 0.13 acres in area. And that is 5,207 square feet, lot width of 41 feet. So I'll enter that as our first item.
If there's no objection, it'll be
No
moved in as
We're not contesting the code. The code and the interpretation of the code is absolutely correct.
But I'd still like to enter the material for the record.
it will be entered.
The second item is I want to enter page 4-17 of the zoning ordinance. Article 4, the land management code. This is the building lot area and setback chart for the residential zoning districts. I draw your attention, and I believe I highlighted this in the package of materials that I mailed out to you.
Yes.
This line down for 2-family dwellings in the RMED zoning district. This property is located in the RMED district. Minimum lot area requirement for a 2-family dwelling is 8,000 square feet. The property has to be at least 50 feet wide. So in order to create a 2-family dwelling on this property in accordance with the zoning ordinance, it would have to meet those minimum requirements.
Again, no objection, and we can see that we're not talking about the code. We're talking about the non-conforming use.
Understood. We recognize that they're raising the position of nonconformity, but again, I'm just entering the material for the record.
It will be entered.
Okay. We have had some ongoing experience with this property over the last several years, including zoning violation notices previously issued. Also, the inspectors have had issues with this property numerous over the years, and as a result, our inspections team are quite familiar with the property and its history. That'll be shared in more detail when I bring the inspectors up for them to present the background on the property. But I want to point out a couple of things before we do that. In your packet, we have a zoning violation notice dated October 7th, 2019 for creating a 2-family dwelling on the property. That is dated October 7th. There's a cover letter from me to Ms. Lord, and also the actual violation notice. And in that letter, I draw Ms. Lord's attention to the fact that we had conversation in early 2018 about the issue, and I informed her at the time that the zoning ordinance does not permit this use. And as a result, work was done on the property after that information was relayed to her. I'll also direct you to, in the packet that I provided, material from the zoning administrator. It's an email dated March 14th, 2018. So this is the early part of 2018. This was as a result of some communication that Ms. Lord and I had regarding the zoning status of the property. And at the time I wrote to her as follows: I've exhausted our resources here and find nothing that allows me to conclude that this was a two-family dwelling. Please see my email of February 20th below of February 28th. If you have any additional information, I will be happy to review it. We're always happy to, I'll go off script here a second. If folks find additional information that demonstrates nonconformity, we're always happy to relook the situation. But the information I had available to me on March 14th, 2018, no such information existed. On that email of February 28th, 2018, that was referred to in the email I just quoted, I will read that into the record. Ms. Lord, okay, I've had some time to delve into this situation. In doing so, I spoke with Enforcement Manager Paul Falk and Chief Code Official Blaine Moen, who are also giving me some of the background on this property. When they did so, it rang bells to me that you and I actually discussed this property a few months ago. At that time, you mentioned that you had bought or were buying this property for ownership by your son and his developmentally disabled son, and wanted to set up the property as a two-unit dwelling so your son and grandson could live downstairs and rent the upper level to make the project affordable. At that time, I believe I informed you that based on the size and width of the property, the zoning ordinance would permit only a single-family dwelling on this lot. And this response caused you some degree of distress at learning this information. We really have no information that would suggest that this property is a valid non-conforming grandfathered use for a two-family dwelling. The city performed certain work on this building several years ago, and there's no record that I am aware of that this was 2 units at that time. There are questions about how long it may have been vacant as the non-conforming uses expire if not used for a period of 2 years or more. Also, part of the building, according to Mr. Falk, was used as some form of illegal rooming house, which may affect status of nonconformity. We have nothing in our zoning street file for this and our building permit file for this property, while having a fair amount of content due to code violations of varying sorts over the years, also shows no evidence of a two-family dwelling. Therefore, unless you can demonstrate the property has been configured and used as a two-family dwelling since 1977 and has not been vacant for a period of 2 years or more, which would void the non-conforming status, this property is limited to a single-family dwelling. I also direct you to additional email communications I've had with Ms. Lord in 2021. I'm not going to enter all of that into the verbatim. I'll save us all the pain of that. I'll just enter them. They're part of the exhibit package that you've received. Oh, and I do want to mention that the package that I put together, the zoning administrator's package, there are a number of blank pages in it. And I just want you to be aware that what happened was I scanned a pile of papers as a two-page scan. Some of the pages had something on the back, some of them did not. So I checked it against my original, and I want to mention it on the record that the package that you have is complete. Those are not just misscans or anything like that. They're just the backs of one-sided documents that were just scanned as the blank pages that they were. So just FYI. Let's see. We also have emails from November of 2018 from Paul Folk to myself, copying the director of our department, Kathleen Marr, and the chief code official, Blaine Moen, talking about electrical inspections at 718 Forest Street. There's also advertisements for the rental of the apartment in the package that I provided. Now, what I would like to do is I would like to go back to the applicant's package of materials and what they submitted as evidence or their arguments for this case. And this department does recognize that nonconformity is a valid argument if it can be demonstrated in defense of voiding a zoning violation notice. So Mr. Mahone is correct in that he can raise nonconformity as a defense to this violation notice. However, it's on them to demonstrate the nonconformity. We issued a violation notice in 2019 due to demands on our office. It really didn't go anywhere. And when it perked back to the surface, Ms. Lord expressed a desire to appeal. The 30-day appeal period of that original 2019 violation notice had expired. However, our policy is to afford everyone the maximum opportunity to use their appeal rights. So we did reissue a new violation notice, which reopened the 30-day appeal window, and they did avail themselves of that. In their package, they provide materials from prior owners and tenants, and I would just like to draw attention to some of the content of those, or people knowledgeable of the site. First, I'll draw attention to the affidavit provided by Mr. Calvin Haxton. It's Mr. Walter Haxton's brother, I believe. And I just want to draw attention to the last line above his signature. It says, "My brother took possession of the aforementioned property and continued to live on the first floor while renting rooms located on the second floor." Notice that's not an apartment, that's renting rooms. That's the wording provided by the affiant. I'll now also refer to Mr. Haxton's. Actually, no, I'm not gonna question that one. I will draw attention to the one written by Walter Haxton. That's the one that takes up only the very upper part of the letter of the page that says, "To whom it may concern." It says, "Since I have been on and off renting the spare bedrooms in the house." Notice how he didn't use the word apartment. He says the spare bedrooms. Basically, it sounds like what he was operating was rooming. He was providing rooming. He was operating a rooming house, which is different in the zone in our code than an actual apartment. My question is, when did I'm not sure when Mr. Haxton died. I was curious as to, there's no date on this. I was wondering when Mr. Haxton would have had the foresight to write this out and provide this for the record if Mr. Haxton has passed away.
He had emailed that to me before, and I didn't have him sign it because I wanted him to change the wording a little bit. And he died, and in the packet, the original packet that I submitted, there was a copy of his obituary. He died almost a month after we purchased the property. And after my meeting with Ms. Kyler saying that, I started talking to Walter about what was going on with that. And I think it's just their verbiage of renting rooms, because he also said when he moved in, he lived on the first floor, and he's always used that as an apartment. But he also mentions that for there to be an apartment 1, there has to be an apartment 2. Even though he's renting rooms, he mentions that there has to be an apartment 2.
Okay, so what you're saying is that before he passed away in 2018, he provided this to you?
Yes, and he sent it through a Facebook Messenger so that I can pull up that and
Okay.
find a date and, show you. I don't have I could, it would be cumbersome on my phone, but I could show you where I received all of these things from him.
Okay. And staff would just disagree with one point. People can call things apartments, doesn't necessarily mean that they are. So just as a matter of record, we disagree with the calling this an apartment as conclusive evidence that it truly wasn't a dwelling unit. With that, I would like to call Ms. Kyler to the stand.
Ms. Kyler?
And Ms. Kyler has been sworn in. What I would like to do is for the inspector to provide a basic history of this property as our enforcement staff is aware of it. I'm not going to lead with questions. I'm going to turn the table over to the inspector and have her flesh out a narrative on this.
Okay. Can you guys hear me okay with this mask on? I can take it off. Okay. I've been an inspector since 2004, and I first started having dealings with Mr. Haxton around, it was October 2008. Our office, he was pretty well known in our office. His property, getting notices a lot for like his exterior, the way the exterior looked. And we visited the property back in October of 2008. And at that time, he let us inside. There were multiple safety hazards, improper electrical wiring throughout, and the structure was deemed unsafe, and we condemned the house at that time. Through the years that I've had interactions with Mr. Haxton, there was a lot of times he, let me just say, he had a caseworker, and if he wasn't on medication, he would do things that he normally wouldn't do. And in this, he tried to rewire stuff. He had electrical boxes open, wires everywhere. It was a very unsafe environment. So we condemned the house. And in early 2009, he went through our program for emergency assistance repairs. And with that, he was to get 3 proposals from contractors, and we do assist in that cost. It's considered an emergency repair. In the packet that was sent to you, there are 2 of the proposals that both kind of lay out what they were doing. And both of them state 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, 1 kitchen. There was never any indication of a second kitchen. But to have 2 kitchens in a property doesn't necessarily make it 2 units. I mean, you can have 2 kitchens in your house. We got everything, the electrical, there was an electrical contractor came in and did all those repairs. He was able to move back in. February 2011, he came to our office again for assistance on emergency repairs for new heating and plumbing. He was having issues with all kinds of plumbing is what the application. And we received a proposal at that time, February 27th, 2011, and the plumbing was all done, heating, all new heating. During those 3 years, there were never anybody else living in the house except him. He lived there by himself.
I'm going to object. It sees the scope of this hearing. And it's hearsay. We don't have any benefit. This gentleman's dead. And what happened back then? We're talking about 2019. 18.
Actually, since you're raising nonconformity, which has a 2-year expiration period, all this material is relevant,
Oh, so she's testifying to nonconformity.
or lack thereof.
Objection noted, overruled. It is relevant to the status of the continuance of the nonconformity.
And so that was 2011. I didn't have any other dealings with him the next couple years. And it was sometime, I want to say probably towards the end of 2017, that our office started receiving complaints of him renting rooms. At one time, renting bedrooms to homeless people is what the complaints coming in. I was able to gain access one time there. A gentleman left me
I'm
in.
going to object to that. If they had that, they were supposed to give that to us, right? We never received any of this.
You received it this afternoon.
Not what she's testifying to. There's no way. I've read through everything you gave me.
Well,
That our office received complaints?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. What you're talking about now and complaints, we should have those.
Okay. I'm going to, let's see, how am I going to do this? It's my belief that we should probably allow the applicant and her counsel time to review those items that they have not received. We may have to reconvene, because if they're not prepared to address these issues, they haven't received the copies of those items. I'm looking at the email that I received today at 10:43, and I don't see Ms. Lord or Mr. Mahone copied on this. And this is the first time I was seeing it. So
The reason for that is that we protect your all's email addresses from the outside public. We sent them separately.
okay. And they were sent at the same time?
Within a half an hour, 15 minutes or so.
Okay, so before noon.
The complaint call wasn't enclosed in my packet, the proposal.
Say that again?
I don't know if he's questioning where my last thing that I said about receiving a complaint. I don't know if that's what he was referring to, that he doesn't have a copy of.
Mr. Mahone, can you elaborate?
What don't you have a copy of?
Anybody's complaint.
We did not send the voluminous amount of materials associated with the many ongoing complaints about Mr. Haxton's property over the years. That is true. We did not include all of that in mailers to you. We simply sent out what we thought was relevant.
I mean, from my perspective, I can't speak for the other members on the board, but from my perspective, those complaints are interesting, but they don't go towards proving that there was cessation of the non-conforming use. It just means that there were additional items that the city was called to address. So I'm not clear as to how that would prejudice applicant's case. So you got a complaint. It doesn't mean that the property necessarily wasn't being used in the way it had been.
Okay. We can take a different tact on that then and steer away from referring to other complaints in the record.
Yeah, I think I'd again, not speaking for the other board members, but I think it's important to focus on the non-conforming use. And if the city has evidence that shows that, as Ms. Kyler just alleged, and testified to, that there has been a lack of cessation of the use, I should say, a cessation of the non-conforming use sometime between 2008 and 2011 that appears to have spanned more than 2 years. Okay, that's relevant. But the fact that there were complaints, okay, it may have drawn them to the home and led to the discovery of these things that opened up this 3-year window. But other than that, let's focus on the gap.
Okay. Suzanne, do you have additional direct knowledge from inspections that you want to add to the record?
Well, I sent a notice I spoke with Mr. Haxton on January 26th. He called me regarding a notice that I sent him.
Of this year?
Here.
I'm sorry, January 26th, 2018.
18.
He called to tell me that he sold the house to Miss Lord. I made contact with her and I met her at the house at 718 Forest on January 31st, 2018 with another inspector. She allowed us to walk through the house. At that time, she was advised that she could not use the upstairs. It was a single family home, could not be used as 2 units. And then I advised her to contact Steve.
Did you have access to the second floor at that time?
I did.
And the area that's now used as a kitchen, do you recall what that space was used for?
There were 3 bedrooms. There was a bathroom. I do not recall a full kitchen.
Okay.
Now, if yeah, if there was a stove or a refrigerator around the corner, I do not, it was not a full kitchen like it is now.
Okay. I'd like to direct your attention to some of the materials that you provided that was emailed out to everyone earlier today. One of which is one of the proposals for the electrical work from that request for emergency assistance that Mr. Haxton put in, dated March 2009. You have that in your packet?
Yes.
Which one?
This is the one that was looking for Andrew Simonese, AJ Simonese Electrical Company. Dated March 25th, 2009.
Yes.
Okay. I would like you to, it's a 2-page letter with a signature on the 3rd page, I believe. What I would like you to do is go to the bottom 3rd of the 1st page and read through the middle of the 2nd page, as far as the details of the project are as follows.
Details of the project are as follows. Upstairs bathroom, 1 exhaust fan, light, 1 switch, 1 receptacle. Sunroom, 4 receptacles, 2 lights, 2 switches. First bedroom, 4 receptacles, 1 switch, 1 light, 1 smoke. Second bedroom, 6 receptacles, 1 switch, 1 light, 1 smoke. Third bedroom, 6 receptacles, 1 switch, 1 light, 1 smoke. Hallway, 1 switch, 1 light, 1 switch for attic light. Stairs going up, 1 switch, 1 light, 1 smoke. Bottom of the stairs, 1 switch, 1 light, 1 smoke. Attic, 1 smoke, 2 lights. Living room, 8 receptacles, 3 switches, 1 light. Office, 4 receptacles, 2 switches, 1 light. Downstairs bathroom, 2 switches, 1 exhaust fan, light, 1 light, 1 receptacle. Kitchen, 6 receptacles, garbage disposal, range, refrigerator, 4 switches, 2 lights. Basement, 1 switch, 1 receptacle, 1 smoke. Stairs going down. Top of the stairs, 1 smoke, 1 switch, 1 light.
Okay. Now, out of that material, how many times is the word kitchen mentioned?
1 time.
And it looks like they followed some sort of flow going through the building and reporting this. Where does it appear that that kitchen would be mentioned or would be based on the areas described above and below it in the list?
The kitchen is on the 1st floor.
Okay. So we have, this is an estimate for essentially completely rewiring the house or something along those lines. And there's only 1 mention of a kitchen in the building in 2009.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'd like to move on to a second proposal from April of 2009 by Sandy Messner, an electrician. And looks like it's a handwritten pre-form kind of situation. Do you have access to that?
Yes.
Could you read the description of the work into the record, please?
I'm going to try to read his writing.
Admittedly, the handwriting is not the best.
We shall go in and go through all existing wiring to make sure everything meets 2008 electrical codes. New wiring throughout the house will consist of wiring kitchen outlets and switches plus 8-way switches. Bathroom needs total wiring, basement total rewiring. Run new line to furnace plus install emergency switch, a workman's switch at furnace plus GFI outlets needs outlets wired front of the house, outlets back of the house. And back of house, so stall
Also-
outlet and crawl space for heat tapes, also smoke detectors, wire for, is that in the basement? First floor, second floor, hall, and 3 bedrooms. Smoke detectors will be smoke and carbon combo, will be in basement, first floor, second floor, hall, also regular type. Smoke detectors will be in 3 bedrooms, install 200 amp electrical service. Note existing electrical panel on job site will be used on the contract.
Okay, thank you. So based on that description, does this give the appearance that whoever was bidding on this was bidding on rewiring 2 dwelling units?
No.
Thank you. That's all I have unless you have anything to add.
Well, I mean, I would like to just finish my interaction that I had with Mrs. Lord and the property. It's no material that I need to submit. This was in January of 2018 is when we advised, I did, that she couldn't have 2 units. And June of 2018, our electrical inspector saw that there was work being done at the property and issued a permits required notice for building, plumbing, and electrical. And at that time is when we saw that she was doing that, the remodeling of the upstairs. She did get permits not until August of 2018, and those permits were never finalized, and nobody ever called for inspections, and they actually expired.
I have copies of the final stickers. I'm sorry.
December 2020, December 30th, 2020, the current tenant upstairs called our office stating she contacted our office regarding the apartment she was living in to see if it was a legal unit. She stated there was no permanent source of heat. The unit was not fully separated from the downstairs, only separated by a locked door. And she stated issues with electric not being separate due to only 1 meter. January 6, 2021, myself and Steve met the tenant at the 2nd floor of 718. And at that time is when I saw that it was now 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, a living room, and a full kitchen. I issued her a notice. I don't know if I can talk about the notice because, oh no, my notice is in the packet. Yeah, the January 12th notice is in the packet that I issued to Ms. Lord, deemed it uninhabitable, stating it was able to be rented. She appealed my notice and we had a appeal hearing, but she withdrew it. She did not think she was prepared, and at that time told Steve that she would go to the BZA hearing
Okay,
or
thank you.
appeal his notice for the BZA.
Okay, thank you. So these actions that you all saw were long after the conversations we had in 2018 informing the appellant that a 2-family dwelling was not permitted at this location. Okay.
Yeah, may I address those? No.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you, Suzanne. Next, I would just like to call Mr. Falk to the stand for just a couple of quick questions. Mr. Falk, the applicant says that they have obtained certain utility permits for certain work on the property.
That is correct. In 2018, a plumbing permit was obtained for remodeling 2 baths, 1 kitchen, and adding a washer. That permit was not finalized by our office. In August of 2018, a permit was applied for alterations, a building permit to add a 3-foot 6-inch wall to the kitchen bath area, frame bathroom doorway, add 6-inch wall to step area, demo 1-foot wall at living room. That permit did have a framing inspection, but did not have a final inspection, so it was expired due to lack of inspections. And then we had wire a kitchen, bathroom, and laundry on 2nd floor. And that one was closed out by the electrical inspector.
Okay. Now, these utility permits, could you give us a little bit of background on the process that's involved and who reviews them?
All right, so for any type of building permit or electrical or plumbing permit that we have, as for a electrical or plumbing permit is issued immediately by the permit technician. They go into the record, determine what the work is that they're doing at the property. If the permit application's been signed by a licensed contractor, the permit will be issued. If the contractor is currently licensed with the city of Hagerstown, there is no review of any zoning conformity for a plumbing or electrical permit.
So these plumbing and electrical permits that they received, some of which apparently were final, some of which were allowed to expire, none of them were reviewed by the zoning administrator for compliance with the zoning ordinance, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. That's all I have for Mr. Falk. Basically, a summary of the position of the city is that the applicant was informed before they did a lot of the work that is described that this property could not be used as a 2-family dwelling, that there's evidence in the record showing that there's no ongoing full second dwelling unit on the 2nd floor of that property based on the materials that were provided, such as the estimates from contractors for the city initiated work in 2009, and the past history of the property with by our enforcement staff. That at most, this property may have been some sort of informal roommates or boarding situation, but it was never, as far as we can tell, based on the record provided and also the material provided by the applicant, that this is a true 2-family dwelling where you have 2 separate and distinct dwelling units.
Okay, I will allow Mr. Mahone opportunity to direct questions on cross to Mr. Bachmiller, Ms. Kyler, and Mr. Falk, one at a time, not like back and forth among them. But if you have questions for Steve, you can ask those now.
Okay, I have a question for Mr. Bachmiller. Mr. Bachmiller, it seems as though there were discussions between your agency and Mrs. Lord prior to the death of Mr.
Haxton.
Mr.
Haxton.
Mr. Paxton. Is that correct?
I believe we had conversations as far back as January of 18. I believe that would have been about the time you were purchasing, Ms. Lord was purchasing the property.
Right.
And in terms of getting a statement from the existing owner at that time, Mr. Haxton, did anyone from your agency get a statement in writing from Mr. Haxton as to the use that he had been using the property?
We did not, and there's a reason for that. And the reason,
No, I'm just saying you didn't get one.
one was not provided by Ms. Lord at the time.
I'm not saying Ms. Lord, I'm saying the gentleman who was deceased.
We had not received one from him. We did not seek one out from him. That's not our role.
Okay, all right. I don't have any additional questions.
And I'd like to clarify some things, if I may. When we had talked about,
Hold
I did want.
on. So, Mr. Mahone, you have no questions for Mr. Falk or Ms. Kyler?
No, hold on one second. Indulge us for a second.
Sure.
Okay, you want to address that statement, don't worry about the other. Yeah, Mrs. Lord would like to, make a statement in regard to the testimony of the first witness in terms of what she was told about the property.
So you mean Ms. Kyler?
Ms. Kyler.
When I met Ms. Kyler,
Wait a minute. We've got an order of procedure here.
okay,
Are you done with your cross-examination of the city witnesses?
I am done with the cross-examination.
Okay. Are there any other witnesses in opposition? Okay.
No, sir.
All right, hearing none. All right, now I will provide the applicant an opportunity for rebuttal. Go ahead, Mr. Mahone.
okay. When I met with Ms. Kyler out there, she did not say it was not a 2-unit property. She said it was a rooming house, and everyone, including my son, had to move out immediately. And I asked her at that point why he needed to move out. He was an owner. He had heat, he had hot water, and why did he need to move out? And she said that everybody had to move out. She would think about it, and if I didn't do what she said, that she would continue to fine me until I lost the property. She did call me several hours later. to
Mr.
say,
Chairman, I object.
Basis?
Basically impugning the character of the inspector. I find it exceptionally hard to believe that this inspector would say such threatening things.
We'll take it. We'll take, she's under oath. She's testifying under oath. We'll consider whether the veracity of that when we deliberate.
I was absolutely terrified, and that set the entire tone from that point on. And she did call later that afternoon and say that my son could continue to stay there. But that just terrified me completely. So I did look, and I saw that, having roommates like that was not acceptable. I didn't find anything in the city codes or anything about that. I did see that rental units owner occupied +1 did not fall under any of the jurisdictions. So
Staff objects. We're saying that rooming upstairs, which she just mentioned in her comments of what was told to her by the inspector, that it was a rooming house, is not a second dwelling unit.
right. And I'm not saying that's what she told me. So I asked them to, okay. But also, I did have the permits. I have the final inspection sticker. I have a picture of the final inspection sticker. So I'm not sure what happened with that, but I do have a copy of the picture, the little sticker that he put up on there. The permits were not pulled immediately because I hired a contractor. And when you hire a professional, you presume that they do things that they're supposed to do. And then when we found out, then I went through and did do it the right way. I was unaware that they were not doing it with the permit. So yes, that was done that way. And to address I did want to get a formal legal acceptance for a 2-unit property, but as a owner occupied +1, I was not sure that I needed to address that immediately. So that's why I didn't address that right there. Also, the proposals, the electrical proposals that they submitted. Okay.
That would be it.
Okay. Since you mentioned that you have at final inspection stickers,
Mhm.
or you have pictures of them, Mr. Falk testified that there were a number of permits pulled, and that except for the, I think, except for the last one he mentioned, there was no finals. So what inspection stickers do you have for what permits and what dates?
I would have,
Are on there?
I need to get my phone out and see if I can, I
Okay.
mean, I know I have a picture of it. I just don't know exactly.
Okay.
I remember the third one was a blue one, and I was all excited because he said I was good to go, and I was extremely nervous about the whole thing. My entire relationship with Miss Kyler was very controversial. I had also, and I don't know if this is relevant. Okay.
Okay, I would like to know what the inspection sticker should have some information on it that tells us when the permits were signed off.
I can answer that real quick
Yeah,
for you there,
that's
Brian.
good, Paul.
The blue sticker that she's referring to would be the electrical final inspection sticker that I mentioned was or accurately closed out. There would have been an additional plumbing inspector sticker, would have been orange, and then she would have received a certificate of occupancy letter that would have been mailed to her. There would be no sticker in the panel box if the building permit was closed out. That is part of the process for the inspections.
Okay. There were 3 stickers. I don't know what they were on the window.
The other stickers would have been associated with the electrical work in 2009. That most likely would have been in the box.
No, they were new. I'm sorry. Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay. So to close out that last interchange, it seems as though there was a final for some electrical work that was the last permits that were pulled, and that there were some other permits, utility permits that Mr. Falk had testified there were no final inspections done. And in August of 18, there was permits for alteration to add some walls in there. So it sounds like maybe framing and possibly electrical for that as well, and that there were no final on that. So if you only have one blue inspection sticker, that's great. That closes out the last one, at least for the permits that were pulled. The other ones are still in question.
There were 3.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
But they may have been earlier. I mean, without seeing them, we just don't know. And I'm not as concerned about personally, I'm not as concerned about the final inspection stickers. I'm more concerned about the gap that seems to have existed between 2008 and 2011. But before we go into that, I don't want to add my own opinion. I want to bring that up with the board members. Mr. Mahone, do you have a wrap up, a summary that you'd like to give?
I would, no, I think the information is good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. For my fellow board members, Aaron and Janice, do you have any additional questions at this point, or things that you think we need to see or have access to in terms of items that have been discussed today? Evidence?
I do not.
I know you talked about the inspections, but I'd rather see that everything was received proper and in order.
Mm-hmm.
And I really do think, I know that she mentioned that the son was not, wasn't available for this evening, but I think that needs to take place before a decision is made, a final decision is made.
You would like to hear from the son? Is that?
We just may have to table it until a later date then, if he's not available this evening. Because we had this.
We don't have any objection to that.
Do you have particular things you're looking to get from the son? Just confirmation?
Well, are you talking to me?
Yes.
Okay, because you had asked earlier if she could get him on the phone. Well, that wasn't, available at the time, but there may be some insight that he can place that she's not able to. I don't know if she's the total spokesperson, is she taking care of everything on this property, but there's a few gaps I think that need to be filled in.
Okay. Okay, Ms. Lord, do you think that would be possible for us to have your son available either by remote video conferncing or in person?
Yeah, we can do that. I can have my daughter babysit.
Okay. Because we would like to see a copy of your homeowner's insurance, at least the declaration page, to give us an idea of how the insurance company has characterized this property.
Right.
And then if you can provide us with, if you can take color pictures of on your phone of the inspection stickers on the panels and kind of put those on a piece of paper or blow them up and get those to us as well when your son comes so that we can see those. I think that lends us some idea of when, kind of the order of when things were happening.
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
Yes.
We've kind of gotten a field, I think, from the way these things are handled a bit. How do you foresee this hearing moving forward as far as accepting additional testimony for the record, evidence, et cetera? I mean, both parties have essentially closed their arguments at this point, although it was mentioned earlier about adding it. I'm not encouraging you one way or the other. My question is procedure. How do you plan to move forward with continuing the meeting and then reconvening and taking additional testimony, and how?
Well, I mean, the procedures call for us that we do not have to deliberate immediately after the hearing. And although the parties have closed out their evidence, we still feel that things have been brought up on oral testimony that we would like to see. So I would say that there would have to be a rescheduling, not a rescheduling, but an additional scheduling of a follow-up so that we can see that information, can ask questions about it, maybe and if those from both Ms. Lord, her counsel, Mr. Lord, and city staff to make sure that we're seeing what we're supposed to be seeing, or that they're describing it the way it's supposed to be described, because I can't read those stickers myself either. And then to make sure that those issues are put to rest to the satisfaction of the board so that we can then deliberate without having those things kind of in our head saying, would this make a difference? Again,
Could the staff be made aware of that material before the continuation of the hearing so we can bring to the meeting the appropriate building permit files associated with those final or expired permits?
Yes.
If we get it in enough time in advance, we could actually copy that material and send it to the applicant, send it to you all as well.
That would be great, because yes, I do believe that there is backup in those files that will support or the inspection stickers. It will support whether or not there were finals done. I mean, I think it's relevant to making sure to us to make sure that because the applicant is saying this has been used for 40 years continuously. We've heard some testimony that seems to lead to the argument on the city side that no, it wasn't. And we've heard testimony from the applicant that it was used as an apartment. It has been for years. There's some dispute about whether they're calling it a room is an apartment, calling it an apartment is really a room. So I do think that it would be helpful to have both the information that the applicant has that we've asked for, as well as information from the city files regarding the permits that were pulled and whatever happened after they were pulled.
And when that material is presented into the record, will the respondent have the opportunity to cross and question it?
I think both parties should.
Okay.
Yes, each party. So yes, even though you've said that's all your testimony, we're going to reopen it because I think both sides should have the opportunity to explain that information, and both parties should have the opportunity, as they have for this round with the evidence presented, to ask questions of each other to support their points as well. And then the board has the full range of information. We've heard everybody's side of the story, and then we can make our decision. Hopefully at that point, I think that would put it to rest.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you.
When would you want to reconvene? When would you want to set it up, or would you just continue to the next meeting? Or?
I think if the next meeting is on the 16th of June.
Yes.
Is that right?
If it's in the evening like this, I mean, I can be available.
Okay, I gotta check let me check my calendar real quick. Yeah, that's the 16th of June. Okay, I'm available that evening. So if I think, can we, let me ask the question. If we have an earlier Wednesday evening hearing, is there time to do we have to we would have to advertise this again, right?
No, it's continuation of the existing hearing. Anybody who is a party who is interested would have seen the advertisement for this hearing and have been here. So
Okay.
we don't need to re-advertise.
Okay, got it. All right. So we don't have to re-advertise. We don't have to post the property. We just all get together and see what has come to light in searching for that additional information. Okay. Do either the city or the applicant believe that we need more time than, let's say, today is the 19th, June 2nd, 2 weeks?
Oh, I thought we were gonna do it on the 16th because I'm not available until the 16th.
Until the 16th? Okay.
Because I have things on Wednesdays.
Right, and we would need Aaron and Janice to be here in addition to myself.
You don't necessarily have to do it on a Wednesday if you don't want to.
Yeah, okay, but Janice, you're out until the 16th?
Right, I didn't really want to deviate from the Wednesday.
Okay, all right, so if the applicant and city are okay with June 16th, we'll just make this the first item on our agenda that night,
Right.
because it shouldn't take as long as a regular hearing.
And if we could get that information on the stickers so we can pull the file.
Yeah, let's say that.
I'll send it out to everybody well in advance.
Right, yeah, let's say that by the 9th of June, a week prior to the hearing, let's exchange that information or get it into the city, and the city provide to Mr. Mahone and the applicant what you find in your files. That'll give you a full week to digest it. Think about how you're going to present your information, how you might respond to the other side's information. That way you're not just getting it the day of. Okay. All right. So what I will do then is I will say that we will allow this hearing to remain open until June 16th at the same time, 7 o'clock, where we will reconvene. We will still make the Zoom video conferencing available to those who wish to avail themselves of that use. And on June 9th, all information that will be discussed at that June 16th hearing, tangible evidence, should be provided to the city and from the city to applicant and Mr. Mahone. And my board members, Aaron and Janice, are you in agreement with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. Anything else from the applicant or from Steve regarding that procedure?
No, sir. I don't think so. I think we're
Okay.
already at this point.
Okay, if something comes up, that needs to be addressed procedurally, let's try to address that as best we can through emails. Janice, will you have access to email while you're away?
Oh, my, yes.
Okay, good. You're not going to some remote mountaintop resort.
Oh, no, I'm right in my own study right now.
Okay. All right. So yeah, if anything comes up procedurally or we need to adjust, to push it out in extra time, let us know so that we can consider whether that's doable or not.
And Mr. Chairman, when we reconvene on the 16th, any of the other members who are not here tonight, they'll need to recuse themselves from participation.
Correct.
In the
Correct.
continuation of this hearing.
That's right. They won't be able to ask questions and they won't be able to deliberate. Just be me, Aaron, and Janice on that particular matter. All right. I think that's it. Any other administrative items, Debbie, Steve?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Aaron, you second?
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Have a great evening, everyone. And we look forward to seeing everybody back on the 16th of June.
Okay, thank you.